G'day and welcome to BENSWORX. This week's episode is inspired by a fellow maker on YouTube called Jedrek29T. Most of you have probably already heard of him. He makes really cool miniature resin projects and he's the inspiration behind today's video. I was walking through the comic book store the other day and I found this really cool die-cast figurine of Aquaman and I thought it'd look really cool to cast it in resin. Now my first thought when I saw Aquaman was that he had to be underwater, and what better way to simulate that than put him on a bed of sand. Unlike most of my other projects where I cast in a plastic cup, then I shape it, then I polish it, this time I'll be using some pre-made silicone molds. Now these ones have come from Solar Color Dust and they come in a range of sizes, and today we'll be using the bigger one. But before we start mixing up resin, the first thing we need to do is dry this wet sand. Now that I have all the moisture out of the sand, we'll be able to add some resin and create our base. As always, I'll be using Art Cast Slow Set by Just Resin. I think the best way to do this is to add the resin to the sand and then just keep mixing until I've got a nice consistency. Kind of like mixing concrete. Got to make sure you get all the dry bits from the bottom. That looks to be a nice consistency. I'm pretty happy with that. The next thing we're going to do is grab our silicone mold and spray some mold release. I'm just going to use some of this rocket release. So my plan with Aquaman is to have him buried in the sand. You can see here that he's got this little base, almost like a little surfboard, and I'm going to have that buried in the sand so you can just see his feet. I've just had a thought about this Aquaman. He is quite heavy and I'm worried that he may sink into the sand, so I'm going to have to think of a way to keep him suspended up. Okay, so my plan is I've got some tie wire and a stick. I'm going to put it through his arm and hopefully we can keep him up in the air. Alright, so I think I've got it. There was definitely a bit of mucking around there trying to prop it up with these sticks, but he's looking pretty good. I'll bring you guys down and give you a closer look. So you can see there that I've got his base buried in the sand and it's just his body sticking out. So now I'm just going to leave this and we'll let it cure. I left this to cure overnight. It's now gone nice and hard. So my next step is to pull all the bracing off and we'll start pouring in the blue. Now I'm just going to mix up some more art cast. To get my resin to look like water, I'm going to add 1 drop of blue alcohol ink. Normally when I do my resin castings, I want 0 bubbles, but for this one, because we're simulating water, I actually don't mind if there's a few bubbles in there, so I'm going to mix quite aggressively, and I won't be putting this one in my pressure pot. You can see there we've got a cool effect from all these bubbles. I'm not sure how many of them will stay, but I'm going to let this sit overnight and we'll come back tomorrow. It's at this point of the video where you guys get to learn from my mistakes. Off camera, I noticed that one of the sides was bulging out, so I decided to put something up against it to keep it level. Now when I've come back today, which is the next day, you can see here that the edge that I actually had something propped against is in now. Even though it was dead straight when I left it, for some reason it's caused an indent, so we don't have that nice square shape anymore. For me that's not too much of a drama because I can just take it to my sander, square all the edges up, but I was hoping to just pull this out of the mold and have it finished. But like I said, it's not the mold's fault, it's my fault. I shouldn't have put anything against it, but you learn from your mistakes. So I guess this is the part we've been waiting for. Let's demold it. That come out super easy, especially with using that rocket release. Well, there we have it. There's our little Aquaman sitting in his bed of sand. All the bubbles stayed in there, which was nice to see. Looks like we did trap an air bubble though, just in that corner. What do you guys think? Do you reckon I should leave it like this, or should I take it to my sander and sand it all up? Like try and get that bubble out, fix the top, fix the curve. What do you guys think? Leave me a comment. Stop right there. I couldn't finish this video without finishing the project, so I spent the next 4 hours sanding and polishing and finishing Aquaman. And here is the end result. I'm so glad I went through with it, with all the sanding and polishing, because now he looks amazing. You can see how by sanding the edges, I took off the surface bubbles that were around it, but I've left all the little micro bubbles on the inside, so it still looks like he's under the ocean. Well guys, what do you think? Do you think he looks better sanded down? Personally, I think he looks much better, but let me know in the comments below what you think. Also, while I had some sand and resin left over, I made this really cool turtle ornament. This little guy turned out really cool. I'm going to have him for sale on my Etsy store. I'll leave a link in the description. And while you're there, go check out my new range of dragon eggs. Nicole and I have spent the last week sanding and polishing and getting them all finished. And while I remember, Nicole has a new Instagram account. If you want to see what she's been up to, go check her page out. I'll leave a link in the description. Well, that's all for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give me a share and a like. It really helps me out a lot. And don't forget, go check out JedRec29's channel. He's the inspiration behind this week's video. I'll leave a link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.